Although Katharine Hepburn has been a picture star for over 6 decades and has had the longest, maybe the most influential career of any woman in the movies, it was in her first decade, the 30s, that she made more films and perhaps more daring films than in any other. But then the 30s was a strong time for women in the movies. In fact, they dominated pictures, more often received top billing than in any other decade. Katharine Hepburn, for example, became top star in her second picture and kept that position throughout the 13 other movies she did in the 30s, yet she took second place to a male star in 1940 and almost never was billed first again. All that was different, though, in 1932 when Kate Hepburn, age 25, took Hollywood by storm after only a few jobs on the Broadway stage. Director George Cukor cast her as John Barrymore's daughter in A Bill of Divorcement, the picture that made her a star. 2 films later, for Morning Glory, she received the first of 4 Oscars she would win as Best Actress, still a record. But her first major box office success was her 4th movie, and her 3rd, released in 1933. George Cukor's sensitive, touching version of Louisa May Alcott's classic novel, Little Women, produced by David O. Selznick and co-starring Joan Bennett, Paul Lucas, and Spring Byington. Set in Concord, Massachusetts, it's the story of 4 sisters and their mother in the dark days of the Civil War. The picture won an Oscar for its script, and Hepburn won the Cannes Film Festival's award as Best Actress for her striking performance as Jo, a New England girl, like herself, a part George Cukor said she was born to play.
I thought it'd do my brain good to have my mop cut off, and so I did.
2 years and 3 films later, Hepburn had another great success, playing another small-town American girl in the title role from Booth Tarkington's Pulitzer Prize novel, Alice Adams, featuring one of her most luminous and ingratiating performances. This was also the first major film for a young director named George Stevens, and it co-starred a very young Fred MacMurray.
No. I've never had a feeling like this before. It's just so, that's all. You're never coming here again. Why, it's all over, isn't it?
Hepburn followed this with one of her strangest pictures, but also one of her most interesting and unusual, her 3rd with director George Cukor and her 1st of 4 with Cary Grant. Sylvia Scarlett, in which she plays most of the film disguised as a boy in order to save her con-man father, acted by Edmund Gwenn. It was the first time Grant had done anything in movies but a conventional leading man.
Oh, there's plenty of room for both of us here. Go on, get your pajamas. Let's get curled up.
But
what?
Well, I'm afraid I'll snore.
Oh, well, I'll cure you that. I'll give you a clump on the head every time I hear you.
Yeah, but I kick, too.
Ah, never mind about that. Hey, no, it's a big nippy tonight. Hey, you'll make a proper little hot water bottle.
No, I'm stuffy. It's dizzy.
Audiences of the time hated Sylvia Scarlett, but it has considerable charm today, and so does the one she made next, also a failure in its day, Mary of Scotland, the only film Hepburn made with director John Ford, about the strong-willed, ill-fated Mary Stuart, sister of Elizabeth I of England.
I shall worship as I please, and hope for all men to worship as they please. In Scotland.
The story goes that Ford and Hepburn fell in love during this film, but Ford was married. Nevertheless, the 2 remained good friends throughout Ford's life. The most boyish I ever saw Ford was when he spoke of Kate Hepburn. Her 13th film of the 30s was Gregory LaCava's delightful version of Stage Door in 1937, about a New York boarding house for aspiring actresses with Ginger Rogers, Lucille Ball, Ann Miller, and Eve Arden.
Do you mind if I ask a personal question? Another one? Are these trunks full of bodies? Just those, but I don't intend to unpack them. Well, I was just thinking if the room got too crowded, we could live in the trunks. Yes, that's a good idea. You don't mind helping me unpack.
Hepburn's last film of the 30s was also one of her best and one of my favorites, directed, like her first, by George Cukor, and again co-starring Cary Grant, Holiday. Among the headiest, most inspiring, and surprisingly honest of 30s comedies, it's about a guy who wants to learn about life while still young instead of just earning a lot of money. He falls in love with a rich girl who doesn't approve of his radical ideas, but her sister does, and Hepburn is the sister.
I suppose, like the great fathead you are, you told Father all your little hopes and dreams. Pretty disappointing.
Bad enough.
Poor boy.
Hey, put up the lights!
A memento!
Hurry!
Linda.